All right, welcome back. We're talking to Dr. Rand Paul from Bowling Green, who's running for the U.S. Senate Republican nomination against others, including Trey Grayson. But I want to talk to you really quickly, Dr. Paul. Tell us about your father, Ron Paul, congressman from Texas, ran for president last year.
Right. Well, he's a physician like myself. He practiced OBGYN in Texas and then has been in and out of the legislature over the last 20 or 30 years. And my favorite quote about him is from the Wall Street Journal, where they say that his refusal to compromise is legendary. And I think it sets him aside because there was a meeting one time many years ago, and it was a private meeting at the time. It's been 15 years, so I guess it's not private anymore. But it was the Republican caucus, and Newt Gingrich was going on, and this is like 1996, on how we need to get all this pork barrel spending because that's how the Democrats stayed in power. Yeah. And they were talking about this whole strategy, and he says, I expect everyone in this caucus to vote for it, except for Ron Paul, because he always votes no.
All right, that's good. Now, are we going to see your father in the state? Is he going to come in and stump for you?
We have tentative plans for him to come into Louisville in late January.
All right.
So, but it has to be about me. I mean, it's about me. I mean, it has to be about me presenting the message and presenting the ideas. And while he has done great things to help get me started, people aren't going to elect him. They have to elect me.
Talk about your money bombs. What is a money bomb, and talk about your success with those.
A money bomb is where we generate enthusiasm on the internet for one day in which we all contribute. It was started during my father's campaign, and on December 16th, 2007, they set the online fundraising record. They raised $6 million in one day. So we did one on August 20th of this year, and we set the Kentucky record for online fundraising. Other people have raised maybe more money at a traditional fundraiser, but we set the online fundraising record by raising $450,000 in one day online.
Wow. All right. You going to have any more of those?
December 16th, the anniversary of the Boston Tea Party.
Right.
I've been big in the Tea Party movement. I've been to a lot of Tea Parties. In fact, I come out of the tax reform movement is where I got started in politics. And we have a Tea Party on the anniversary of the Boston Tea Party, December 16th. And people can log on to that at randpaul2010.com.
All right, get that campaign
there
in
you
there.
go.
All right, now talk about the Tea Parties. Right now, when I was a reporter, I loved covering the grassroots activism, wherever it was. You saw it in 2007, 2008 with the Democrats and Barack Obama.
Right.
Now you're seeing it with the Tea Party. How do you describe the Tea Party movement, the Patriot movement, the people, the 912 groups, these very grassroots groups that are getting activated?
I would say it's an amazing phenomenon. It's not sculpted from the top down. It definitely is grassroots. When I went to the first meeting last April 15th in my town, Bowling Green's not very big. We have about 50,000 people. 700 people showed up on the square on April 15th for a Tea Party. They're not just Republicans. Some of them are Democrats. Some of them are independents. They're not part of the hierarchy of either party. And the main thing they're unhappy about is they think government is out of control and the debt is consuming us. They don't like higher taxes, but I think them and me, myself, would actually tolerate a little bit of what we have if we could just get our fiscal house in order by cutting spending. So they really think the debt is a big problem.
Very early on in the show, we had Mike Wilson on, I think his name is, from Cincinnati, who really started the movement in Cincinnati. But the one that got me was in D.C. In the fall, when there was, I think, a million people or more filled the streets. So the movement has a lot of legs. Let's get to some issues. The Tea Party people talk a lot about the spending, and Ben Bernanke, Congressman Bunning, or Senator Bunning, pardon me, come out and said doesn't think Bernanke should have another term. What do you think?
I couldn't be more proud of Senator Bunning and his statements on Bernanke yesterday. In fact, it was quite the speech. He had about a 13-minute speech, which is all over YouTube now, you know, going after Bernanke. He voted against him the first time, and he said, everything you've been doing has been wrong. The housing bubble, the blame should go to the Federal Reserve because they made credit rates or interest rates below market rates. They spurred this bubble. They never predicted it was coming. Then when it came and we had this disaster, who did Obama appoint to all the positions again? Bernanke, Geithner, all the people that were involved with creating the problem. So I think Bunning's been great on the Federal Reserve. And should I be fortunate enough to move forward with this, I hope that I can be the same type of critic of the Federal Reserve.
And of course, Senator Bunning was very critical of Alan Greenspan in the 90s when people were praising Alan Greenspan, and he was ahead of the curve on that one for sure. The TARP money. What about when we hear this talk of companies are too big to fail? Would you have supported any of the TARP money at all for AIG, the automakers, any of the banks?
No, I would have voted against the TARP funds. And I think when people say, oh, they're too big to fail, I think they're too big to bail out. And the problem is that the people who make this conjecture are Geithner and Bernanke, who were wrong about predicting it. So now we're supposed to take their opinion that if we don't do it, it'll be worse. But that's a prediction. And so you have to see and value who the one is making the prediction. If they didn't predict the looming crisis and now they say, oh, you've got to bail these out or it'll be worse, maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong. I think organized bankruptcy is the way AIG should have gone. It's the way ultimately Chrysler went through organized bankruptcy. It's predictable and it's fairly slow and not that traumatic. Fruit of the Loom and Bowling Green went bankrupt and we didn't like it, but they became a smaller, leaner, meaner company and Warren Buffett bought them. AIG would probably be bought by Warren Buffett if it got rid of all their credit default swaps, got rid of their derivatives. I don't know what percentage that is, might be 20 or 30% of the company, but it'd be a smaller company, but probably still very valuable. The other thing liquidation of bad debt does is it allows us to move on. Part of the reason a lot of that money is still sitting on the sidelines and hasn't come back into the marketplace is they're still uncertain. How many credit default swaps do you have and what is your company really worth? Liquidate those, sell those, get a marketplace for them. If they're worth 10 cents on the dollar, so be it. But what the Federal Reserve did is they came in and through Goldman Sachs bought a lot of it at 100% of value that could be worth 10 cents on the dollar.
Didn't negotiate it.
And won't tell us. That's the whole audit the Fed movement that we're part of. A lot of our movement's talking about audit the Fed, let's have transparency. What are they doing with the money? Who did they buy?
All right, I consider you part of that, not anti-government crowd, maybe so, but at least against big government. But do you think we need more regulations, for instance, on derivatives? Should over-the-counter derivatives be regulated?
Right. Well, the interesting thing is the derivative market started around 1999 or so, and there was a bill, it was called the Graham-Bliley-Leach bill, and it was to repeal Glass-Steagall. Glass-Steagall was from the Depression, and it prevented investment banking and commercial banking from being intermingled. And repeal of Glass-Steagall alone, my dad always said, oh, I'd vote against that. But the bill grew and grew like so many bills. By the end, the repeal was 900 pages long, but in that were some language and some rule changes that created the derivatives market. And Phil Gramm was big in promoting this, and they created a market, but really they did it not out of real capitalism, but out of legislative fiat. So sometimes maybe voting against some of these changes, which I would have voted against the Graham-Bliley-Leach, maybe we would have never gotten into this problem with the derivatives.
All right, we're going to take a break and come back and talk about you are a maverick within your own party. You ruffle some feathers.
That'd probably be safe.
We're going to come back and talk about that with Dr. Rand Paul, Republican for candidate for U.S. Senate. Stick with us.